Indubitably, all of you know this lake, right? Kırmızı başlıklı kız in Turkish. How many of you have heard the story? How many of you haven't heard the story? Okay. Well, whatever you think about the story is completely irrelevant. Because I have just recently discovered that we have been told a massively huge lie. We have been deceived for generations. And actually, the story doesn't go like that. I am here to tell you actually what happened in that day in that forest, particular forest. And I'm going to try to shed some light on what happened. Now, the little red girl, the little Red Riding Hood girl and her mother, by the way, I mean, for ease of reference, I'm going to call her the mother, but we have no way of knowing whether she's her real mother, her biological mother, her caregiver, or some just, good-hearted woman just pretending to be her mother. But like I said, for the ease of understanding, let's call them the girl and the mother. They live on the edge of this endangered forest. And by the way, in this forest there are some beautiful plants that could actually provide the cancer cure, but the pharmaceutical industry was so dominant in those times that they passed laws actually in the Congress to prevent access to those flowers, so they just happened to be there. Anyway, on this particular day, this little girl and her mother was having a conversation at home, and her mother asked her to carry this recycled plastic bag filled with organically grown fruits and mineral water to take her grandmother and to give her. But the little girl said, "But mother, all parcel shipments in the forest are carried by union workers, so won't I be stealing work from them?" She said, "Well, I just talked on the phone with the union boss and got you an exception, so you can carry the basket." "But mother," she said, "you know that you are oppressing me by ordering me to carry this basket to my grandmother." And the mother said, "Well, darling, only men can oppress women, so women cannot oppress women, so there's nothing wrong with that." And the little girl said, "Okay, mother, but shouldn't my brother take the basket since he's a man and he's an oppressor, and shouldn't he know what it is like to be oppressed?" And he said, "Well, your brother is in the forum right now trying to preserve a park that the government actually wants to build a shopping mall, so he's not available, so you can take the basket." "But mother," said the little girl, "am I not going to be offending grandma by implying that, you're old and sick and incapable, so I brought this basket to you?" And the mother said, "Well, first of all, your grandmother is not old and sick, and there's a fine line between capable and incapable. So unless we are educated, we are not able to tell the difference. So you can just take the damn basket." So, having accepted all these, the little Red Riding Hood starts walking in the forest. She just walks in the forest and she sees a woodchopper with his axe cutting some trees. And as she was walking, she is surprised to actually find herself next to this wolf. This big black wolf. And the wolf says, "So, what are you carrying in your basket?" Now, two things. The little Red Riding Hood was told by her teacher that she shouldn't talk to strangers. But being a consensual adult, she actually knows that her destiny is in her own hands. So she decided to start up a dialogue with the wolf. And she said, "I am taking these cruelty-free snacks to my grandmother." And the wolf said, "Well, little girl, don't you think it is a little unsafe for you to be walking along in these woods by yourself?" And she says, "I find your sexist remark highly offensive, but I will ignore it because I know that you're an outcast from society and this doesn't reflect your real world view, so I will just prefer to be on my way." So she goes on her grandmother's way. But the wolf, being an outcast from society and having spent many, many years in the forest being an outcast, knows a quicker route that actually goes to the grandmother's house. And he takes it. He just enters the house of the grandmother, and by the power and the privilege vested upon him by the nature and the creator, he just eats her, the grandmother. And without falling a victim to the societal gender pressures, he decides to actually put on her clothes on himself. He just crawls into the bed and abates developments. The second thing that I mentioned would be the little girl actually was also told that the forest is a dangerous place, but she also knew that this fear was based on some unfounded, irrational beliefs of the society, and actually given the chance that the forest could be a sparkling place with beautiful things and everything. But again, she made the deliberate choice of actually taking her own destiny in her own hands and walking through the forest. And when she got to the house of the grandmother, she walks in and says, "Grandmother, I have brought this cruelty-free organic snacks for you, as well as the mineral water." And the grandmother yells from the bedroom, says, "Come on closer, child, I want to see you better." So she walks up, and she says, "My God, Grandma, how big eyes you have." And she says, the wolf says actually, "Well, darling, you're forgetting that I'm getting old, so my eyes are getting big." "Okay, but Grandma, what a big nose you have." The wolf says, "Well, you know, I could have it fixed by plastic surgery, but I'm not going to give in to such aesthetic pressures of the society, so let's just leave it at that." And then the little girl says, "Oh, Grandma, how sharp teeth you have." And the wolf, fed up with all these physical appearance insults, just grabs the girl, jumps from the bed, grabs her, opens his mouth so wide that she actually can see her grandmother down in his belly. And she just yells at the wolf, "Excuse me, wolf, excuse me, but aren't you forgetting something? You have to ask for my permission to take this level of intimacy up." Yeah, you have to ask my permission. What are you doing? The wolf is so startled by this expression that he actually releases her involuntarily. And at the same time, you remember the axeman with the wood chopper? He just walks into the apartment and yells, "Hands off!" And the little girl goes, "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing? If I let you help me now, I'm going to understand that I am low in self-esteem, and I will eventually score lower on college entrance exams because of this low self-esteem, so I'm not asking for your help." And the man says, "Okay, lady, that's it. That was your final warning. That wolf is actually an endangered species, and you're in violation of federal laws, so you're under arrest." So they take the girl away. The wolf, with the grandmother still in his belly, asks the wood chopper, the undercover agent, whether he can take one of those mineral waters that the girl was bringing because he was having some digestive problems. And the officer says, "Of course, go ahead." So this is actually what happened in that day in that forest. Now, I have no idea how the facts got so messed up, and for many generations we believed that some other form of the story was taking place. But what is the moral of the story? Well, to me, the moral of the story is that no lie stays intact forever. So sooner or later, the truth eventually comes up.